Welcome back. This is Lesson 2 in a short series of videos to help you prepare for the ACT writing exam. Lesson 1, as you may recall, reviewed the overall structure of the ACT writing prompt and gave you a strategy for how to approach each ACT writing exam. The link to Lesson 1 will be available in the comments below if you haven't seen it already. What I'm going to do in this lesson is provide a quick review, again, of the strategy that we discussed in Lesson 1, and then show you my sample response to the writing prompt that I presented in Lesson 1, so you can see how I went about, how I would go about structuring an essay for that example. All right, so let's get to it. So, as you recall from Lesson 1, our overall strategy for how to approach the ACT writing exam was to read the introductory paragraph on some controversial topic, and then stop and make sure that we've identified the specific question, and then quickly generate your own opinion before looking at the views that are presented on the exam. Once you've done those things, you're going to read the 3 reviews, and you're going to decide if your initial opinion matched any of the 3 that are presented, or perhaps if you'd like to change your opinion, you can do that at this point. Once you've decided generally what your position is going to be on this specific controversial topic, you're going to evaluate each of the 3 reviews, whether they agreed with your decision or not, because you're going to need to discuss each of those 3 views in your essay. You're not only going to have to present your own view of the topic, but also discuss the 3 positions that are presented. So you'll evaluate each of the 3 views, see whether they agree or disagree with your position, evaluate its individual strengths and weaknesses, identify the assumptions that are made, and discuss whether or not they're valid. See if there's anything that the particular view has failed to consider. And most importantly, identify concrete examples that either support the arguments that you've made or counter any arguments that are against what you're discussing. And then you'll write your thesis statement and topic sentences and be ready to write your essay. Okay, so now let me show you how I apply this strategy to the writing prompt presented in Lesson 1. The first thing I'm going to do is read the writing prompt, and then stop for a minute and specifically identify the question that's being asked and jot down some initial thoughts. So after reading this sample writing prompt on experiential education, I identified as the main question, should teachers push to include more hands-on learning in their classrooms? And my initial thoughts on the subject were the following. First of all, many teachers already include hands-on learning in the classroom. And I remembered also there's a Ben Franklin quote, "Tell me and I forget, show me and I remember, engage me and I learn," which is basically indicating that, yes, you're recognizing rather that it is beneficial for students to have hands-on learning experiences in order to help them really internalize the material that's being presented. And finally, I know that memorizing facts, while that's important, isn't sufficient for everything. And the hands-on experiences that students have in the classroom help to really learn when to apply the material in appropriate settings. Okay, so now I've taken care of this first step. I've read the introductory paragraph, I've identified the specific questions, and I've generated my own thoughts. And now what I'm going to do, as you'll recall, the second step is to read the 3 views and see how those relate to my initial thoughts and decide whether or not I want to change my position and move on from there. And initially, when I read the 3 views that accompanied this prompt, I thought I was happy with my initial position. For the most part, I found that it overlapped with 2 of the given positions, and I thought I'd be able to write a strong essay defending my initial position and incorporating both the views that agreed with mine and the one counter position that's also presented. So I was ready to start analyzing the 3 views specifically for the 5 points that I had mentioned previously. Okay, so these are the 5 things that I'm going to look at for each of the views that are presented in the prompt, because my essay has to discuss not only my position, but also the 3 views that are presented with the prompt. So now let's look at each perspective individually. So this was perspective 1, and it mostly disagrees with my position. All right. While some experiential learning is effective in many contexts, it's not necessary or practical for every single lesson, which is what this particular perspective is arguing, that teachers need to provide experiential involvement for every single lesson. And I would disagree with that. Okay. For example, you can't do that if you're going to discuss what quantum mechanics is. You can't do that if you're going to discuss nuclear power. It simply isn't practical. Okay. All right. So let's move on to perspective 2. Now, perspective 2, okay, as you can see, generally agrees with my perspective. All right. Experiential learning can improve understanding, and it's useless to memorize facts if you don't know how to apply what you've learned. All right, so it is certainly important in math and science to provide concrete, hands-on experiences where the students can apply what they've learned. For example, multiplication manipulatives. It doesn't do a student any good if they've learned that 12 times 12 is 144, but they don't understand what multiplication actually means. That fact is meaningless. Okay. I partially disagree in that experiential learning is important outside of the STEM areas. You need it in your other fields as well. Okay, concrete examples, certainly if you're going to teach someone baking or shop classes, and in history you can use some simulations. There's lots of places where you can use hands-on or experiential learning outside of STEM. Okay, so that aspect of this particular perspective I would disagree with. Okay. And then finally, perspective 3, I would generally disagree. All right. This perspective is saying students would be better served if schools invest money in other educational models and opportunities, and I would generally disagree with that. All right. Experiential learning is already in the classroom. It's been part of human learning since the very beginning. Hunters and gatherers learned by trying what they could cultivate, what animals they could domesticate. All right. Children continuously learn by doing and trying things. Tasting, falling, riding a bike, playing with balls. You learn about gravity. Flying a kite, you can learn about buoyancy, about what keeps things aloft. All right. The other thing that I would disagree with here is there's a fundamental assumption or an implicit assumption that experiential learning is expensive. That simply doesn't have to be the case. All right. Counterexamples. Multiplication manipulatives can be very inexpensive. You can use groups of crayons. You can do simulations in history classes that don't cost you anything. You can do simple experiments with paper planes or boats for buoyancy. There's lots of things that don't necessarily have to be costly and yet are effective ways of teaching and providing experiential learning opportunities for your students. Okay, so now I've analyzed the 3 perspectives, and I'm ready to figure out how to organize my essay. All right, so you have your 3 perspectives, and obviously I'm going to discuss all 3 in my essay, so I have a nice strong ACT essay. One obvious possibility for organizing the material would be to just discuss the 3 perspectives sequentially as they're presented. In a future video, I'm going to discuss some other options for strategies for how to construct a really strong persuasive essay. For now, let me just tell you that what I decided to do was I didn't want to discuss them sequentially. I didn't think that would make the strongest essay. I decided that I would discuss perspective 2 first, okay, because it mostly agrees with my position. And then after that, I would discuss perspective 1, okay, and discuss the idea that learning, experiential learning has its place, but it isn't necessary for absolutely everything. All right, and then finally I would discuss perspective 3, addressing the idea that students shouldn't do it at all because it's too expensive. All right. Now I'm ready to go back and use the notes that I had generated for each of the different views and create topic sentences. So let me show you quickly what I decided would be my topic sentence for my first body paragraph, which again is discussing perspective 2. And my topic sentence shown here: hands-on learning can be applied across the curriculum to ensure students thoroughly understand what they've been taught and will be able to apply it appropriately in the future. So this is where I'm going to take on the issues mentioned in perspective 2, and the idea that it is certainly an effective way to teach. It's very effective in the STEM areas, but it's also effective throughout the curriculum. All right. Then for my second body paragraph, which is this one that I mostly disagree with, the idea that it has to be included in every single lesson plan. All right. I have the topic sentence: while there are clear benefits to invoking experiential learning models in the classroom, it is neither practical nor necessary for every learning objective. I'm sorry, there's a small typo there. And then finally, for perspective 3, my final body paragraph, I decided that a good topic sentence would be: while some critics worry that experiential learning will drive up costs, there's nothing that dictates student experiences must be costly in order to be effective. All right, and those were the rough drafts of my topic sentences for my 3 body paragraphs. All right, having done all of that preparation work, I think I'm now ready to write a comprehensive thesis statement, and this was my thesis statement. As educators look to improve education, they should be encouraged to include experiential hands-on learning experiences where appropriate. All right, so I've presented in this thesis statement what my opinion is and the direction that my essay is going to take. Having done that, I'm now ready to start actually writing the essay for the ACT exam. So I'm going to make sure my essay includes that thesis statement, which clearly states my position. I've got my topic sentences all ready to go for each of my body paragraphs. My body paragraphs are going to address each of the 3 perspectives presented. I'm going to provide detailed concrete examples that support my position and detailed concrete examples that point to weaknesses in the counter-arguments. And finally, I'm going to write my conclusion. So that gives you an example of how I approached this writing prompt. I hope you found it helpful. Please look for the other videos in this series, and you can also visit the website. The link will be in the comments section below if you're looking for some additional help or an opportunity to have someone actually review your ACT essays. I wish you all the best.